I'd like to make a motion that we, and the chairman has that we increase that, our operating budget by $100,000.
Is there a second?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. For the record, I'm David Hess, 68 Pine Street here in Hooksett. I was on the Budget Committee 40 years ago. I was chair several years. And at that time, the individual for whom the school was named was the superintendent. We were subject to considerable uncertainties about the number of students that were going to go to Central and West. And we were even more faced with the uncertainty of how much Manchester was going to charge us for tuition. So the Budget Committee and the school board had a handshake understanding that the Budget Committee would support any request that the school board made for a tuition line item with the understanding, unenforceable, unwritten, but with the understanding, with a handshake, that if those funds were not expended for tuition, that they would not be diverted for any other expenditures by the school district in that fiscal year. Is that not a possible solution to this issue?
Just to, if I could, Madam Moderator, to clarify, we're talking about a suggestion from Mr. Hess that would it be possible that if the tuition were fully funded, could we have a gentleman's agreement that anything less than fully funded, any expenditure less than fully funded, would only be spent on tuition? I would advise the board to shake hands on that one.
I would, to answer David's question, I would say yes to that gentleman's agreement.
In October of 2011, before we started the school budget process, I made a motion in the Budget Committee which was passed, which asked, it was an opinion only, that the school fund balance should only be spent for emergency or unforeseen items. We asked the Budget Committee rep to convey this to the school board and bring back any communication. I asked for that twice, and we received no communication back. This was prompted because in last year's budget, there was about $225,000 that was fund balance spent. I'm a believer that if we vote here to appropriate money for a particular purpose, that it should be spent for that purpose, excluding emergencies or unforeseen safety items. Again, before I made a motion to cut this budget, 2 days before that meeting, I appeared at the school board meeting, and through public input, I asked the school board to adopt such a policy. Again, I received no answer. I think it's important that when we are voting on money here, that we know that that is the purpose of it, and it's not going to be repurposed without the approval of this body and spent on something else. And I think this did play into the cuts that were made this year. They played into it as far as my votes went, and I will admit that here, that had I had assurance that this money would be spent only for the purposes appropriated, it may have affected my votes on the cuts that were made. Thank you.
Was the draconian cut made here? And part of its punishment. For the draconian cut made here, if 100% of our youngsters attend public high school next year, we have a several $100,000 problem. That it would necessarily be a cut in current services. And I don't know what they'd be. There'd be current services. There'd be...
That still sounds very general to me. Like people would get fired?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our programs would have to go.
I would comment that at the Budget Committee, with the school board rep present, there was discussion of a memorandum of understanding. Again, nothing came back to the Budget Committee with any interest in that. I proposed the school board considering a policy of fund balance spending only for emergency and unforeseen items as a way to kind of ensure that money, not just that tuition money, but all the money in the budget. And that was not responded to as well. So I do think that the Budget Committee has made some efforts toward that, but we received no discussion about it.
One of the things I looked at was trending in regards to surplus tuition line for Manchester. And what we did is took 3 consecutive years. A member of the Budget Committee asked for audited statements from 09, fiscal year 08-09, 09-10, and 10-11. And what we looked at was that the surplus from 08-09 was about just a hair under 200,000, when there was regular high school students of about 475, give or take. Fiscal year 09-10, the surplus actually nearly doubled, or I should say did double, to about 132% increase in surplus. At the same time, the number of students also increased by approximately 41 students. So there's some other things that are odd in regards to how this thing starts to climb.
Trying to understand the additional request of $100,000, I think I've heard that over the course of the last 3 years that there's been substantial monies not spent at the end of the fiscal year. And then those monies go to, and that's the part I missed, I don't know, where do those funds go? Do they go to the town side, they go to?
For the school district, any money that is left over as fund balance goes to the general fund. So it would, yes, all money that is not spent under the school district is returned. So that number that you're referring to is sent back to the town.
But we have to understand that the money that's given back in the undesignated fund balance is after any year-end spending. And last year, there was quite a bit of that. It did result in $1 million coming back, but there was 1.25 to start with. And some of that money did go to unforeseen costs, but a lot of money went to technology, infrastructure, and things that were not appropriated in the budget. And that's what I have my concern with, is that those things that those should be put into next year's budget if they're needs for the district, and they should be voted on by the body and appropriated if the body approves.
So we're debating a budget now that will go through June 30th of 2013. I'm good at it. Your tax rate, your school tax rate shows that I'm good at it. It's less today than it was 6 years ago when I came here.
One of the things about a tax rate is that tax rate is really meaningless if the valuation on homes goes high, and that's how we basically tax for these types of budgets. And if you look at valuations right now, over a 10-year period, we're paying about 80% more in taxes on our homes than we were in 2002. If you look at the valuations from 1992 to now, it went to about 2002, and it's a hockey stick and climbing. So I didn't see it as draconian.
Okay. So just to clarify, we have a proposed amendment on the floor that would add an additional $100,000 to the proposed budget. So what you're voting on right now is the article as it's written, with the exception of the first number, which is the appropriation number, would read $26,998,549. If you vote aye, you're approving that added 100,000. If you vote nay, you're voting against the additional 100,000. So all those in favor of amending the budget upwards by $100,000, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
I declare the nays have it, so the motion is defeated.